Listen 100 times, ponder 1,000 times, and speak once. There's a big difference between hearing, that is simply receiving communication, and truly listening, which is the art of paying thoughtful attention with a mind toward understanding and the complete message being delivered. Unlike simply hearing someone's words, listening requires maintaining eye contact, watching the person's body language, asking for clarification, and listening for the unspoken message. In the news reporting industry, journalists are trained in the art of active listening, an interview techniques that reporters listen and understand so well that they're able to ask intelligent, more in-depth questions about information being delivered. Active listening is how good news stories are developed and how many of us can improve our relationships too. Not surprisingly, it also helps ensure accuracy and fairness, two of the most important hallmarks of journalism and two important qualities of any relationship. Marcia Martin is an executive coach. One of her clients, a senior vice president of a major bank, asked her if she could help him make his team meetings more powerful. He complained that his direct team wasn't really operating the way he wanted to in their meetings. Then they didn't bring the right things to the meeting. They were forced on the right things, and they didn't present properly. When Marcia asked him what he did at the meetings and what problems were, he said he always started off meetings by telling them what the purpose of the meeting was, what he felt their breakdowns were, and what he wanted them to do. By the time he had finished describing the meetings, she could tell the whole meeting was him just spitting out instructions to his team members every single time. Marcia told him, "I would advise you to start the meeting with your one sentence. The purpose of this meeting is for me to find out from you how you feel on each of your departments, what you feel the breakdowns are, and what you need me for. And then you should be quiet and listen and talk and let them talk and talk and talk until they have totally talked themselves out. If they stop talking, just say, 'Well, what else?' and let them talk some more." She explained that his people probably hadn't had the chance to really empty out their feelings, their viewpoints, and their suggestions or their questions. He was packing with too much information of all his opinions, and he wasn't really listening. So she told him to allow 2 hours for the meeting and not to say anything during that whole time. He was just to listen, write down notes, nod his head, and be present and interested, but not speak through the process. 3 days later, he pulled Marcia aside to tell her that he had just had the most fantastic, powerful meeting he'd ever experienced in his life, and he had done exactly what she'd suggested, and had listened in all the way, and he had never listened before. As a result, his team members had talked and talked and talked, and he'd learned more about what his people were going through and what his people needed and what he needed to do for them at the meeting once it was all over. A New York photographer, Jack Canfield, once travelled all over the world doing expensive location shoots for his big clients, like Revlon and Lancome. At one point, he shared with Jack how he would give his clients exactly what they asked for, then be mystified when they didn't like the end result. Even if it were the pyramids in Egypt, he said they'd asked him to shoot it over again. It did no good to become defensive or argue with the clients, even though they had followed the specifications perfectly. Instead, he eventually learned that after losing several lucrative contracts, that all he had to do was say, "So let me see if I've got this right. You want more of this and less of that." "Correct. Okay, I'll go and reshoot it and bring it back to you like you want it." In other words, he had learned to argue less with people who were paying the bills and listen more to the people, responding and adjusting to their feedback until they were actually satisfied with what he was doing. Another way for people to fail to listen carefully is to be concerned with being interested in themselves, rather than being interested in the person they're listening to. They believe that the route to success is constantly talk, showing off their expertise and intelligence in their words and their comments. The best way to establish rapport with people is to win them over to your side of truly interested in them and listen to their intention and really learning about them themselves. When the person feels that you're really interested in getting to know them and their feelings, they'll open up to you and share your true feelings with you far more quickly. So work to develop an attitude of curiosity. Be curious about other people and what they feel and how they think and how they see the world. What are their hopes, dreams and fears? What are their aspirations? What are their obstacles facing them in their lives right now? If you want people to cooperate with you, to like you, to open up to you, to be interested in you and them, so be interested in them. Instead of focusing on yourself, start focusing on others round about you. Notice what makes them happy or unhappy. When your thoughts are more on others than yourself, you feel less stress and you can act and respond with more intelligence. Your production level increases and you have more fun throughout the process. Additionally, you're interested in people responding to the interest in them. They want to be around you, and also your popularity increases as a result. During the year of Jack Canfield attending Dan Sullivan's strategic coach program, he taught him one of the most powerful communication tools he'd ever learned. It is one of the most effective ways to establish rapport and create a feeling of connection with another person. He's used it on business personal occasions and also in personal life as well. It's a series of 4 questions, and here they are. And this is what you need to ask yourself. Or this is what Jack was using, the technique. If I were meeting myself 3 years from today, what has to happen during that 3-year period for me to feel happy about my progress? What are the biggest dangers you'll have to face and deal with in order to achieve that progress? What are the biggest opportunities that you have and you will need to focus on to capture to achieve those things? And what are the strengths you'll need to reinforce and maximize, and what skills and resources you'll need to develop that you don't currently have in order to capture those opportunities? About 1 week after Jack had learned these questions, he was in a meeting with his sister Kim, who was the co-author of his early book, Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul books. He didn't feel like they were making much progress in getting connected, so he decided to try these new questions on her and learned and really listened. When he asked her the first question, as if it was a magical light had just unlocked a door, she proceeded to tell him all about her hopes and dreams of the future. He thought he must have talked for at least 30 minutes without interruption. Then he asked the second question. Off she went with another 15 minutes. He didn't say a word. Then he asked the third and fourth questions. Over an hour later, she actually stopped talking. She was grinning from ear to ear and looked unusually calm and relaxed in the process. She smiled at him and said, "That's the best conversation I think I've ever had. I feel so clear and focused. I know exactly what I need to do now. Thank you." He was amazed. He hadn't said a word, except for asking these 4 questions. She had taken herself through a process of clarification with those questions, and she hadn't clearly addressed them before. And doing it with him had brought her great clarity and relief in the process. And he felt very connected with his sister, and she felt very connected with him. Up until then, I think he would have a tendency at some point to jump in and tell her what he had thought and should do, interrupting her own process of self-discovery and not actually listening to what she was actually saying. Since that time, he's used those questions with his wife, his children, his staff, his corporate clients, his coaching clients, his prospective seminar participants, and numerous potential business partners. The results are truly magical asking these 4 questions. So it's your turn. Take the time today to write these 4 questions on an index card or a smartphone or a tablet, or carry it with you. Start with your friends and family members too. You'll be surprised how much you'll learn and how much closer you'll feel afterwards. Use these questions with every potential business client or business colleague. Once they've answered, you'll know whether or not there's a basis for your business relationship. You'll know whether or not your products or services can help them achieve their goals. If you find out they don't want that, and they don't want to answer these questions, then they're not the people you want to do business with. They're unaware of their future and can't really think ahead of what they're doing, which is what will make it hard for you to help them. You can't nail jelly to the wall, and you can't get hair off a toad. Always remember this. And you can't teach a broke man to be rich, if that makes sense. Or they're unwilling to tell you the answers. This means that no trust is present and no basis for the relationship in the process. So one final suggestion is make sure you take yourself through the same 4 questions, either alone or on a piece of paper or verbally with a friend or mastermind partner. It is an extremely valuable exercise, and I'll see you tomorrow.